mean, I think the way I see it is, and this is kind of the way this could be fair or not. The way I judge, or like, no, I don't want to say judge. The way
I was going to say, this is about to get serious.
The way that I perceive someone's reception of people who look like me isn't based on how they receive me. It's how they receive someone who isn't as palatable as me.
Ooh.
I think.
So like,
I got something to say when you finish. I don't interrupt you.
So like, because of that, I was out with my wife maybe 2 months ago or so, and we were at this bar, and it's kind of like a dive bar or whatever. It was like all white people in there, right? And I'm a guy walk in, didn't get like all the like weird usual looks and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, okay, I must have been the first brother to roll up in this joint.
Like clutch.
Right? But here's the thing, like, I'm also, as we've talked about before, I'm aware of my bigness and my blackness, so I speak a certain way, I dress a certain way, I act a certain way. I've learned to assimilate. Unfortunately, I can't turn it off. So I know how I come across, and I come across like mad safe, mad palatable in a lot of ways. So about like half hour later, this brother walks in, Pelly jacket, Jabrochi. It's like,
yes.
The Tims, full
construction joints.
So immediately I'm like, okay, I don't really care how you treated me, because like I'm like, safe, nice black, let's say, for instance, right? Once again, very much, I'm like a generalization, but I'm looking at how you treat this brother.
Yeah.
Because like, this is the brother that you're like, oh, he isn't like close to what we are maybe. So I'm like watching that. And I feel the same way with when we talk about this whole conversation about like, like these are celebrities, these are famous people. This is what's hot, this is what's popping. It's the same reason that people can walk around all day and be like, yes, queen, yeah. But if someone says that at Walgreens, who is checking them out at the counter, they're going to do a survey. They were just a little much. They were a little over the top. They were, I'm okay with it, but they were, it was just.
But I'm okay with it.
It was just, you know what I mean? Like,
and
you're
that's
at work, you need to be a certain way. You know what I mean? And it's like, hold up, weren't you just at brunch with some mimosas? Like, putting that on your Instagram story, saying the exact same thing? Like, come on now. So I think it just becomes that thing where it's like, we like it in the way we like it.
And what's really interesting, though, is we're talking about famous people of color. And that's kind of a guide of a lot of pieces of this conversation. But what's happening and what our youth are seeing now, President Barack Obama was the president. Lori Lightfoot is the mayor. For the past, growing up, when we were younger, there weren't people of color in positions of power. There were people of color in positions of entertainment and positions of being famous in those ways. So I think that's where our youth will have an opportunity, and people coming up, to see things that are different. We were talking about the documentary on AOC before this. Like, that is someone that I can like resonate with as a woman who's a young woman, and now she's in politics. For me, for the past my entire life, politics was like, oh yeah, like, that's old white men. Like,
I saw what you did there, by the way. We're not saying your age. Smooth. She was like, get it?
But that's a big piece of it, right? Is we all could be different. I don't even know how old you guys are. We all could be a little bit different in age, and we have different experiences because of that. But watching, and that was like a big part of why I do the work that I do, is if you don't see someone as an executive, as a person of color, and you don't hear them speaking like their authentic self, then you don't see that as that position. You don't see that as that space. So the fact that AOC is in office and speaking the same way that she did when she was tending bar, it bridges that gap. The fact that now women of color are able to wear a hair wrap to work or wear natural hair, the fact that history has just been made. 3 black women won Miss America, Miss USA, and Miss something, and 2 of the 3 of them were wearing natural hair. So not only was it, hey, I'm up here, and I'm up here on a stage that traditionally I wasn't welcome on, but I'm up here on a stage actually in my authentic self, not my safe black person, safe person of color self. I'm here as me, I'm showing up, and people are accepting that. So we're seeing the change, and although it's small, I mean, we're Chicago, and we have a black lesbian woman mayor. Like, that is insane. Like, that is so cool. For whatever happens, just for that one statement to be a reality. Like, I just got the chills right now talking about it. Like, I grew up in a blue collar family on the South Side. Like, firefighters, police officers, like, those are the people I grew up around. So when I do the work that I do, they're curious. But to see that this could actually happen with the generations that we have that are still voting, that are still part of this, that are still in this conversation, it'll be really interesting to watch how that conversation happens for our youth now that they're seeing people that look like them or look completely different than them in these positions of power in different ways.
I think that like that's such an important point.
Yeah,
I'm
so ready for this point.
I know.
I'm so ready for this point. Go ahead.
Because like especially in contrast to the way that we engage with like the celebrity circus, and what comes to mind for me is like how we engage with professional athletes too. Like that's a circus. Man, there's nowhere I like less than sitting in a National Football League stadium, and I love watching football, but surrounded by people that feel to me like they're not rooting with the team, but like they're watching a bunch of animals on the field. Right? Like don't tell me the guy throwing his beer, hurling racial slurs, while he's
cares
drunk.
About the quarterback.
Cares about like the fact that, whatever percentage of the athletes on that field are black.
Facts.
He's not and that kind of engagement with like professional sports, I don't think has done service to people of color in providing them with a certain kind of power and value, but I don't think it's done a service with like certain people engaging with the material itself. I don't think they're learning from that the same way I don't think they're learning from hip hop or fashion.
To conflate and bounce off of what that, because that right there I think is massive. Like that right, woo! Like for real, no, for real. Because I now fully understand and get what it is from a standpoint of we might celebrate our like fashion contributions, our musical contributions, our athletic contributions, but that's still putting people in boxes. Seeing black folks in positions of power that these youth that the youth are seeing is completely changing the framework in a way that I'm just wow. Like I feel really good. Like that's a perspective that I wasn't quite. I just didn't think of it that way because once again, I want this to be really solution oriented, and I think about like you said, they're listening to music, but when black folks die, they're still like.
There's the entertainment, and it's separate. But if it's the actual power, the people that make the decisions, that why this street gets fixed, why this happens,
it makes us complex.
It becomes part of the real world that we live in versus the entertainment that we seek from whether it's sports, whether it's music, whether it's other areas. That's that separating line where now this is part of my everyday life. Now this is a person that is running things that looks different than me, and I'm respecting them. I'm learning from them. They're doing things that I would either not have done, but I'm learning from, or challenge the way that I understand this culture entirely because I see someone different than me doing that.
Which is an evolution that has to happen because I don't know if we've ever, and I can honestly, I don't think we've ever been at a place societally where we've learned to see people of color as more than one-dimensional. I don't think we've ever had that. So we have to embrace this like multifaceted aspect of, and I think it's hard because it's always just been okay. This is what you are. Like this is all you are, and I receive you as such, and it either serves me or it doesn't. But then the rest we kind of reject, which is why across the board, whenever someone of color starts to be like, hey, so about like my humanity, it's like, whoa, don't go all Al Sharpton on me. You know what I mean? Like I'd appreciate if you just like stick doing what you're doing because it's comfortable. We have a good thing going on, like and now you're like want to be equal, like calm down. You know what I mean? I think it kind of disrupts the status quo because of the fact that we've never really had a society that's embraced like multi-dimensional people of color.
Right now you're not. You can't say that, oh no, Lori Lightfoot's just really fast. You know what I mean? You can't say Lori Lightfoot jumps really high, that's it. That's what she does for us as a world. You can't say that she's got rhythm. Maybe she does, I don't know. I don't really know. These things could very well be true, but
she's awesome.
You cannot box her in that way, right? You're like, oh wow, that's a whole human being. Yeah. And she's running this city, and I don't know, and that's undeniable. Right?
That's actually pretty fascinating. I didn't expect the conversation to pivot in such a way, but it's essentially like, just the layers and the complexity and allowing people to be more than just one thing. There's also like this mixture too that's fascinating in that conversation where we talk about how we get in these bubbles and we're not in positions to actually like connect and be exposed to each other. If all you've seen me is through a lens of sports, and all I've seen myself is through a lens of sports, when I automatically assume growing up that I have to be an athlete or a performer, I can't get mad at white folks for thinking that's the only thing that I could be too, because that's literally all we've both seen. And I think that's a conversation that's just interesting. And wow, I'm just how we go from cultural appropriation to cultural appreciation to the humanization of the marginalized is kind of pretty powerful.
Well,
because
I think it's just breaking down appreciation. It's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, we're really trying to figure out how do we appreciate.
Yeah. And I think the more we humanize the people, the more we allow ourselves to like reconcile with our past and be like, because that's essentially slowly but surely what's happening. Is now we get into positions of power to tell our story. Now you get to see our story and see the history and see the contributions that you weren't allowed to see before. And now that changes the whole entire conversation.
It realizes it makes it a real thing in your life that you can interact with versus, oh yeah, that's a story or something that I've heard.
How nuanced was that? I mean, so what it almost sounds like to me is a little bit is our ability to be finally represented in more ways than just 3 or 4 lanes is what's going to essentially make it feel, at least in my opinion, like we're not being appropriated as much. When we get to be in positions of power, tell our story, sell our story, make our guap, profit off of our contributions. Being 100, this is one of those things where, wow.
This is what I don't know that I was trying to say this in the beginning, but it's what I said. I probably wasn't trying to say all this. But, no, but it's appropriation, I don't think, is culturally or socially violent. The point at which you value the humanity in the culture as much as you do the actual commodity that it produces. Like that's the point at which
that's what
I didn't have all that though.
No, but that's it though.
Yeah,
that's the conversation we had.
It's like conversation that explained that further, and even the point I made at the beginning was celebration, and it's a celebration of not just the entertainment. It's a celebration of the humanity, the brain power, the actual you-ness that comes into the room, and the you-ness as the 2 different beings.
Yes.
And not just, oh, I'm safe, or oh, he's cool. Yeah. It's not he's cool for a black person. No, he's cool.
Period.
That's it. No, she's cool for a girl. No, she's cool.
Period.
Like she's good at sports for a girl. No, she's good at like those pieces of it are where we start to break down and come together.
Fire.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm good. I'm satisfied. You go ahead. I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied.
Put the pressure on me, bro. No, I mean, I honestly think it just comes down to this. In order to eradicate appropriation, we really have to have a culture of appreciation. And I think, once again, it becomes this conversation of the solution to something isn't just getting rid of it. It's replacing it with something else and moving in the other direction. And I think sometimes we go like, okay, we got to stop appropriation, no more appropriation. And it's like, yo, I'm with that, but are people growing in appreciation? Because if we just stop appropriation, like, this month ain't gonna stop.
You can't wear that because you look like that isn't the answer. It's, do you know what you're wearing? Do you know what you're saying? And do you know why that matters and what the history of it is?
Yeah, true.
Thank y'all, man. Like, this was like...
Yeah, it was on point, man.
Yeah, and I'm like, the show was doing what I wanted to do. And that's the whole point. And I'm just like really, really excited to get like diverse like perspectives and viewpoints and people that are like willing to be vulnerable in these conversations because they're hard. At the same time, they're the rubric, they're the syllabus for progress. And that was amazing. Like I'm almost at a loss of words, but I never am. I'm just really, really excited that the show is creating the kind of conversation and the kind of discourse that I'm hoping for. It's really, really great when people are like courageous enough to talk about the sticky things on camera, because it's very real easy to get canceled out here in these streets. That matters. Yeah. But I just really, really, I'm happy. I'm happy we got to chop it up, and I appreciate you guys taking the time out to share the stage with me.
Well, thank you guys for making space for us to be part of this conversation and for these conversations to get out, because people need to hear them.
Facts.
And you need to understand that you're not wrong, you just might not know. And then you can learn there and grow. And that's a place of growth, and that's what we all need to be doing, is we should constantly be seeking growth, and that's how we celebrate each other instead of cancel everything out or take advantage.
And appreciate each other.
Yeah.
Yes. This is fire. Thanks, man.